Okay, welcome back. Yeah, this is the exact same setting, so you know I'm doing these back to back. This is Aaron Klein again. Thank you for stopping by. It's always fun doing these. So today, this is where I do it's going to be sort of an overlap. Oh, come on, geese. Oh, there's a lot of them. That's why I can hear them all over the place. Um, Today I'm doing it's one topic applied to two places, but it's because it's applied to one that it gets applied to the other. So today I'm going to be talking about internal values. So this is going to be really helpful. I looked into it. Richard Grannon. I watched some Richard Grannon videos to understand why it's important, and I agree. Thank you. So basically where this applies to is, first of all, you need to. I'm going to be talking about applying internal values to yourself, and I'm going to be talking about why applying internal values to characters when you're writing works too. And it's really, really useful to understand this concept whenever you go about writing. I didn't do any of the research when I started doing this, but it's really helped me out. It helped me build myself up inside to set my own boundaries, and it also helps me with writing. So, sort of my writing has helped me grow as an individual, and that's great. And it'd probably help other people too. So to start with, if you ever feel, I don't know how to put this correctly, but if you ever decide you want to function better as a human being, if you ever decide, I'll just put it this way. If you ever, let's see, a lot of people don't have boundaries nowadays. And it's kind of sad. And a lot of times it's because parents fail to raise children. I'll say it again. It's mean, it's rude, but poor parents create boundaryless children that have no self about them. I'm not saying they have no personality, but that sort of also builds on top of it. But they have no self about them. They don't know where they start and where someone else begins. So that's what poor parenting does. Now, of course, a lot of these people end up being narcissistic and psychopathic, and they have a lot of personality failures. So if you ever decide to start asking questions about narcissists, this is where to start. They have no boundaries. So it goes deeper than that. But this applies to a lot of people. If you see someone who is mentally ill, if they're mentally unhealthy, like if they seem really down and they're usually down, this is a great place to start. A lot of these people don't have internal boundaries. And you kind of need internal boundaries in order to function in the world. You need to know when to say no to other people. You need to know when you're saying too much, when you're stepping on other people. You need to be able to identify you, and you need to identify them. And this is clearly, this is where narcissists go wrong. They don't even recognize when they're doing wrong to other people, because they don't recognize there's no boundary around them, so there's no boundary around the other person. They just flow into the other person. They try to they break boundaries. You know when someone's breaking your boundaries because you feel wrong inside. Now, if you don't know, it's because you haven't set your own boundaries. And it's still a very unhealthy reaction. Well, interaction. Wrong word there, sorry. So this is where I'm going to say the place to start is by building up your own internal values. You can look up lists of values online, lists of personal values. People have created roughly 50 of them. Your goal should be you should go through the list and just pick out specific ones that just pop out to you, whatever they may be. They'll sort of resonate to you. I'd expect people to pick out at least 6 or 7 to start out with. If you pick out 15, you're going to have a little bit of a problem. If you pick out 20, 25, you have a lot of work to do. Your next step is to narrow that down to 5 or less. I'm willing to say 5 because I'm assuming you are more than two-dimensional as a human being. Are you 5-dimensional? I don't know. But I'm going to say narrow it down to 5 because that helps first of all creates a boundary there immediately. These are things I prioritize over these things. Why? I don't know. That's up to each individual. Sometimes they don't even know, or you won't even know. But you will know what is more important to you than other things. So narrow it down to 5 or less. If you're having trouble deciding, knock both of them down. And that means you have 4 instead of 5, but that's a great place to work with. Now, am I saying you don't value those things? No, I'm saying you have to pick which ones are the most important to you, the 5 or 4, or 5 or fewer. And if that means there's 6, knock it down to 4. Then that is a great way to start. And you might, that's just pick out your own values. And then the next step is to kind of internalize those. Feel out where you stand on those, why you stand on those. So for me personally, there's a lot of my values is honesty and loyalty. So what I mean by that is my number one value is what's the right word? Integrity. I think is what I had down there. No. Started with an A. Anyways, first you need to be honest with personally, my biggest thing is people should be honest with themselves and how they view themselves, how they view others. Yeah. So I forget what the word was, but it popped out to me and it was very correct. And then on top of that, the next thing would be responsibility. So you need to be responsible for yourself, and that comes up by you being honest with yourself. Then after that, I'd like honesty from other people. So not just honest with themselves, but honest to the people around them, including me. Then after that, it'd be, that's sort of, the honesty kind of builds into loyalty. So I choose to hold you with respect also. I choose to respect you and value you, and I will be loyal to you, and I want you to do the same with me. Those are sort of my values right now. Don't be afraid. These values will change. They will adapt over time as you grow as a person. So it is okay in a year or two that you start to value different things. That's fair. You're a human being. You will adapt. Your values will adapt with you. But you need to be able to identify what your values are and hold yourself accountable to them. And that's actually going to take a lot of courage. So this is also a really good personality building tool. Once you just identify them and you hold yourself accountable to them, you will build up a lot of your own courage. Just straight up, it takes a lot of courage to be able to hold to your values. Believe me, I've failed on occasion, but it is a work in progress. And you're going to fail on occasion to hold up to your own values, and it is a work in progress. But it is that work that holds you separate from people who have personality defects, people who have who are seriously agitated, who have anxiety, people who break your boundaries. Those kinds of people, they have none of their own. This process will start to set you apart from other people, and that's a good thing. And it's good to have boundaries, even amongst the people who you hold dearest. You need to be able to tell your partner no. The biggest part about having boundaries is saying no to people, and that takes a lot of courage. If you can't say no, then you're leaving the door open. You're always saying yes to some degree. So You need to be able to have these boundaries. Sorry, it's hard to hold this up. You see how how I was starting to invade the camera over there? That's because the camera's on my left side, and it's a pain. I'm holding the phone up on my own. The inability to say no means it's always yes. So therefore, in order to say no, you have to have your own boundaries. And you need to be able to say no to your own partner. Like, you have to have respect for them, so you have to have your own boundaries, and you have to be able to say no. Now, don't get me wrong, you will be boundary breaking when you're in a romantic relationship. There's a lot of things that you'll be doing with your significant other that you would never do with other people. Like, personally, I love to give hugs, but it's only to the people that I trust. So, like, that's one big boundary, and I have to know that it's okay with them. So, like, family, personal family, I give hugs a lot. And that's great. But friends, I have one that I just don't talk to anymore because I kind of disagree with where he's going in life, and we just haven't talked. So even though I haven't told him that I disagree with him, like, we've just gone apart, so it doesn't really matter. Anyways, I have one friend who I would give hugs to. Two friends. And they're kind of dating, so that's beside the point. Which is the issue. They're living together. They're not married. They're probably never going to get married. But they're acting as though they're married, and I just disagree with it entirely, the way they're living their life. But I'd give hugs to these people. You have to be able to set your own boundaries, guys. I know that's, like, very basic, but it shows that boundaries help. When you build boundaries, you build up yourself. And you need a good inner self and a lot of courage in order to live in this world. So, like, yeah, that me saying, no, I don't hug strangers, or even okay friends, that's one, like, you could say that's part of the reason why I'm being able to make these videos. I'm willing to put myself out there to be wrong, to be berated, because I have ideas that, even though I don't have written down credentials, I have something smart to say that I intend to share with people. And if you disagree, that's completely fine. I'd much rather have feedback, constructive feedback, than insurement. Like, I've grown up without a lot of that stuff. A lot of people telling me, yes, you're right, you did a good job. I've grown up without a lot of that stuff. I know that I can live without it, but what I can't live without is people telling me why I'm wrong and how I'm wrong, and giving me actual evidential proof, or else, like, I don't want to be in an echo chamber, and this is how you get to that. So let's move on to the other half of this. This is where I say you need to include boundaries whenever you're writing. You need to include this idea of boundaries in your characters. You need to include values in your characters. The values will give you the boundaries, just verbatim. Like, I can tell when people aren't being honest with me. I can tell when people are using me. My way of putting it is, I know when people are playing games on me instead of with me, to kind of build on Jordan Peterson's idea that humans play a lot of games, even from the time they're young. I know the difference, and most people don't. Like, there are a lot of naive people. I learned from a young age to be able to tell when people are playing games on me. And that's really sad to feel. When you're not only welcome, like when you're not welcome, but then worse, when they include you, but it's not inclusion. It's they've picked you as the game. That's terrible to feel. This is why bullying is really destructive, because kids feel this kind of stuff. It doesn't even have to be super overt. I had a lot of covert game playing on me done. Because, like, you've seen my right hand, right? Yeah, I've shown it at least once. I'll show it again. I was a kid to pick on. I wasn't super tall. Back then I wasn't super bulky. I was kind of geeky, but again, bad parenting. I will completely blame my parents, but it's not completely their fault. Well, it's completely my dad's fault. Like, he is 100% blame. My mom had done the best she could. I will say that. It's a good thing my dad wasn't there, but it's also, it's a sucky situation. But anyways, I'll just get back to the point. If you build values for your characters, they will build their own boundaries. And that's great. So if you want a healthy character, they will have, first of all, you kind of need a way to express those values. So that's why it's a really good idea to write your books from first person perspectives. Those, to me, feel like the best way to write books. Some of the best works have been written in that way. I'll point to Orwell. I'll point to Suzanne Collins. Anytime you want to make a very big point about the way the society is functioning, it's better to have an internal reflection on how that person thinks, what their boundaries are, their values, why those are their values. Because those values also can be implanted within, like, they can also be provided for within society to some extent. Like, each person just has their own temperament, but society also plays a role. Parenting plays a role. Anyways, the idea should be, if you're writing good characters, they should have values, and they should play those out. This is where I'm going to make a huge complaint about someone that used to be my favorite author, but I look back at his work and it's not really impressive. I'm just going to tell my family to stop buying the darn books from me. Rick Riordan, he writes the Percy Jackson. He wrote the first Percy Jackson series. Then he wrote the second one with, I forget his name. The son of, it's not Zeus anymore. It was Jupiter. But you get the point. He's been writing all the Greek and Roman demigod series. My criticism of him is he uses his characters as tools. And part of that is because these characters never built themselves as characters. They never had values within themselves to express. So what this means is that if you backtrack, if you don't have your own values, if you don't have your own boundaries, someone else will give them to you. This is how society works. This is how book writing and sociology should be considered one. Sort of. Like, they should have a lot, they overlap so heavily that you have to wonder if one is just an application of the other or something like that. Anyways, and that goes back to philosophy and psychology. Anyways, if you want your characters to be good, you have to let them, like, if you want your characters to be strong, they have to lead the story, right? I've said that in my previous video about book writing. On the flip side, if you want to tell a narrative as a story, your best bet is to use your characters as tools and to give them some outward traits but no inward traits, so that way you can manipulate them. Oh, that makes a lot of sense, right? Why do you think some people are super manipulatable? Because they have no boundaries. They can't read these things. There are a lot of people that just failed to be raised, and that hurts them, and like, it hurts them in the present, it hurts them in the future. So what that also means is, as parents, you do not spoil your children. Just period. You don't spoil your children. You create boundaries with them. It's good to give them consequences because they need to learn that stuff. You need to teach them diligence. You need to teach them respect. You need to set boundaries for them, and then as they develop, they will develop their own, because they have to be taught how to make boundaries, right? You set values for them, then they will develop their own as they grow up. If you don't do that, like, you have to set a standard. This is why marriage is super important, because the parents have to have their own boundaries. They have to have their own values, and then they give their children values to work with, to start with, and the children build their own. That is one more reason why marriage is useful. But beside the point, if you want good characters, you will give them values, and those values will give the people boundaries. Or else, you will have to use them as tools and manipulate them to tell the story. Which means, if you apply that to society nowadays, those people who were not raised correctly, who have no boundaries, are being used as tools and being manipulated. I said it there. That is the best distinction that you can make. If you are trying to write characters with no values or boundaries to use them, you are probably going to be the kind of people that manipulate those with no boundaries. That's how it works. If you can manipulate characters in a book, you can manipulate people. Because a lot of the times, people who are good writers know how people think, know how people respond. And people who have no boundaries usually respond in very similar ways, as long as they live in the same society. Yeah, that was a lot shorter than I anticipated. This is one of those times where my writing experience gives me credentials to say these things. Not as a psychologist, not as a sociologist or a philosopher, as a writer. I can say these things because I've seen it, I've applied it. My characters are in depth. Which means I've also tried to write bad characters and they fail. Because I'm not the kind of person that can manipulate people. I don't like to, I don't choose to. You have to be that kind of person if you're going to write those kinds of books, and that sucks. On the flip side, my characters write the stories for me. I just have to give them a voice in my head and actions, and I write out those actions because they do those things. That's part of their character. The characters are supposed to write the books for you. That's what makes writing so good and books that are good. So, thank you for your time. Oh, the sun's setting. Beautiful. Hey, you can see the orange on me. You know what? I will do this as a nice little, I'll show you, well, not the sun, but the sky also. That's being created by it. Can you see the sun? Yeah. The sun's setting. It's beautiful. I love it. I love it, I love it, I love it. So I'll point it away and back to me. So yeah, thank you for your time. This is Aaron Klein. If you want to disagree with me, fine. I love feedback. This is part of, again, boundary building. And this is like, if you are good with setting your own boundaries, you are probably good with giving critical feedback. And what I mean by critical feedback, it means you critique me and give me valid explanations of why I'm wrong. There are people out there that just say things are wrong, and that's all they say. And that is emotional garbage spewing out of their mouth. And that's the stuff I don't appreciate. And no one appreciates. If you think critically, that's the kind of stuff that you don't want to hear, because that's worthless words coming out of people's mouths. Yes, it hurts to a point. But at the same time, if you're a critical thinker, you realize those people, if you are saying these things, you aren't thinking critically. Your words are worthless to me. This is where, now of course psychopaths just say all of it's bad, don't listen to any of it, do your own thing. I say, if someone has a point to make and they have reasons to make them honest, then they'll come out correctly, and you should take them into account. Yeah, I'm gonna walk back. I'm at a park where it's close enough to my house I could walk here. Well, to the house I'm staying at. You get the idea. So yeah, thank you for your time. I really do enjoy feedback. No one's really given it to me yet. But that's how I've gotten to this point. That's how I'm going to continue to grow. That's how my channel's going to continue to grow. If you like my content, subscribe, share it, like it, please. I want my channel to grow. I want people to get the information. Like, this is the other half of the coin. I want people to be able to write, and this is a great way to do it. So yeah, thank you for your time. This is Aaron Klein signing off. Peace.